For hundreds of thousands of years, humanity walked the earth as prey. In the brutal landscape of the Pleistocene epoch, the night did not belong to us. It belonged to the shadows, to the megafauna, and to the ultimate cooperative killing machine of the northern hemisphere, the wolf. Our ancestors huddled around flickering fires, listening to the bone-chilling choruses of howling packs echoing through the glacial winds. The wolf was our fiercest competitor for meat, a lethal phantom that could outrun, outhunt, and outsurvive us in every thermodynamic landscape. Yet, somewhere in the frozen darkness of the Ice Age, a terrifying miracle occurred. A subset of these apex predators made a radical, catastrophic choice. They stepped away from the pack, crossed the barrier of absolute terror, and walked directly toward the human fire. When you look into the eyes of a modern dog, you are not looking at a mere companion. You are looking at the genetic remnants of an ancient warrior that betrayed its own kingdom to form the most successful evolutionary alliance in the history of terrestrial life. This was not a story of human domination or domestication through cages. This was a mutual pact signed in blood, survival, and shared calories. By merging the tactical brain of the primate with the predatory sensory array of the canid, two completely different species forged a composite apex predator that completely altered the biosphere of the earth. To truly understand the dog is to strip away the soft illusions of modern breeding and examine a biological weapon engineered by nature, honed by warfare, and biologically hardwired to protect the human race. This is a chronicle of the apex ally, the beast that left the wilderness to guard our gates, hunt our enemies, and conquer the planet by our side. The divergence of the dog from the wolf is an evolutionary mystery that confounds scientists to this day. Traditional historical models suggested that early humans captured wolf pups and tamed them, but modern genetic sequencing and behavioral science tell a far darker, more compelling story of self-domestication. During the height of the last glacial maximum, survival was a zero-sum game. Mammoths, saber-toothed cats, and cave bears dominated the landscape, leaving both humans and wolves on the brink of starvation. In this environment, wolves with slightly lower flight or fight thresholds realized that human camps were reliable sources of energy, surrounded by discarded carcasses, bones, and scraps. These were not the aggressive alphas of the pack. They were the outcasts, the outliers, the wolves whose neurochemistry possessed a lower level of cortisol and adrenaline. Over generations, these bold individuals separated themselves from the wild packs, forming a distinct genetic lineage. As they scavenged closer to human fires, their bodies underwent a radical morphological transformation. Their jaws shortened, their teeth adapted to a more omnivorous diet, and their coats altered in color, a biological phenomenon known as domestication syndrome, where selecting against aggression automatically alters physical appearance. Humans quickly recognized the strategic value of these camp-following canids. They were an early warning radar system, their hyper-acute hearing alerting the human tribe to approaching predators long before human eyes could pierce the night. The alliance was born not from affection, but from a calculation of raw utility, food in exchange for tactical defense. To understand how the dog became our ultimate hunting asset, one must examine the terrifyingly complex engineering of its sensory apparatus. While humans rely almost entirely on vision to map their reality, a dog lives in a rich, multidimensional world of olfactory data. A human nasal cavity contains roughly 5 million scent receptors. A bloodhound or German shepherd possesses up to 300 million. Their noses are highly specialized thermodynamic instruments, featuring a dual pathway system that separates breathing from smelling. When a dog inhales, a fold of tissue directs a portion of the air directly into an olfactory recess, allowing the scent molecules to accumulate and be decoded by an olfactory bulb that is proportionally 40 times larger than our own. This hyper-developed sense of smell functions effectively as a biological time machine. A dog does not merely smell what is present. They smell what was present hours, days, or weeks ago. They can detect the microscopic particles of sweat left behind by a fleeing animal, trace the direction of its flight by measuring the decay rate of scent molecules across a trail, and even sense the hormonal changes of fear, adrenaline, and sickness leaking through human skin. Combined with their auditory range, which can detect frequencies up to 45,000 hertz, far beyond the human limit of 20,000 hertz, the dog operates with a continuous, real-time tactical overlay of their environment. They can hear the subterranean movements of burrowing prey and pinpoint the exact trajectory of a distant threat with structural acoustic precision. The structural architecture of the canine body is designed for a single devastating purpose: the pursuit and exhaustion of prey. Unlike humans, who are built for bipedal efficiency over long distances through sweating, the dog is a quadruped built for elastic energy conservation and rapid terrain traversal. Their clavicles are completely absent, detached from the shoulder blades to allow for an immense length of stride, meaning their front legs are connected to the rest of their body only by a powerful web of muscle and tendon. This unique skeletal layout acts as a natural shock absorber, allowing them to sprint across uneven, rocky, or icy ground at high speeds without fracturing their framework. When running at full speed, a dog utilizes a rotary gallop, an athletic sequence where all 4 feet leave the ground simultaneously in a moment of suspension, their spine flexing and extending like a massive steel spring to propel them forward. Their paws are engineered with specialized, heavily calloused pads that insulate them against extreme thermal conditions, containing a network of blood vessels that prevent freezing when standing on ice, a mechanism remarkably similar to the countercurrent heat exchange found in Arctic birds. Their claws do not retract like a cat's. Instead, they function as permanent, fixed cleats that dig into the earth, providing instantaneous traction during high-velocity turns and tactical maneuvers. They are tireless, relentless pursuers, capable of tracking a target to the point of complete physical collapse. What truly elevates a dog above all other domesticated animals is its unique, unprecedented capacity for interspecies communication. A wolf can be tamed, but it will never naturally look to a human for guidance. When faced with a complex cognitive problem, a wolf will rely strictly on its own intelligence or the dynamics of its pack. A dog, however, does something entirely different. From the age of mere weeks, a puppy will instinctively perform gaze following, looking directly into human eyes to read intent, emotion, and direction. They are the only non-primate species on Earth that can understand the meaning of a human pointing gesture, recognizing that our physical movements indicate an external reality they need to investigate. This psychological connection is driven by a profound hormonal feedback loop. When a human and a dog lock eyes, both of their brains experience a massive surge of oxytocin, the exact same chemical pathway that bonds a human mother to her newborn infant. The dog did not just join our tribe. It hacked our social biology, embedding itself into the deepest, most protective enclaves of the human psyche. They learned to modulate their vocalizations, developing specific barks, whines, and growls designed specifically to alter human behavior and alert us to environmental anomalies. They became our biological mirrors, reflecting our stress, our aggression, and our peace, functioning as an externalized extension of human consciousness. But this primordial alliance was merely the foundation of the canine saga. As human tribes moved out of the primordial forests and began to build agricultural settlements, domesticate livestock, and construct the first fortresses of civilization, the demands placed upon our apex allies shifted dramatically. The camp scavenger and early warning radar system had to be retrained, refocused, and structurally re-engineered to meet the terrifying challenges of a changing world. The wild instincts that had been suppressed during the initial phases of self-domestication were about to be weaponized by human intent. As communities grew and riches accumulated, the threat of external raiding forces, wild predators, and territorial warfare loomed large on the horizon. The human race needed more than just a companion to sit by the fire. They needed a sentinel that could guard their borders, a warden that could control vast herds of livestock, and a biological engine of war that could break the front lines of an enemy army. To understand how this soft companion transformed back into a terrifying instrument of defense and geopolitical power, we must look at the birth of specialized breeding, the moment where humanity began to rewrite the genetic code of the wolf to create specialized biological castes. The transition from nomadic hunter-gatherer camps to structured agricultural settlements marked a violent turning point in the canine saga, transforming the campfire companion into a highly specialized instrument of geopolitical power and territorial defense. As human populations swelled and wealth began to accumulate in the form of grain stores and livestock herds, the newly established borders of early civilization faced constant threats from nomadic raiders and apex predators like lions, bears, and wolves. To secure their fragile empires, humanity realized that the generalized traits of the early camp dog were no longer sufficient. They needed to selectively amplify specific predatory sequences while suppressing others to create distinct functional castes. Through a process of intense genetic manipulation that spanned generations, the dog's morphology was radically reshaped, giving rise to the great pastoral guardians, colossal, deep-chested phantoms engineered to live among livestock, possessing an unyielding protective instinct that viewed the herd as their own pack and any encroaching predator as an existential threat to be terminated. The zenith of this ancient weaponization reached its most terrifying manifestation in the ancient Mediterranean, where the legendary Molossus dogs were forged as a frontline heavy infantry of empires. Bred by the Molossians of Epirus and later adopted by the unstoppable legions of Rome, these massive, heavily muscled brutes were the prehistoric precursors to modern mastiffs, featuring reinforced skeletal structures, powerful wide jaws capable of crushing armor, and an absolute psychological resistance to the chaos of the battlefield. Clad in custom leather armor, studded iron collars, and spiked chainmail, these ancient warhounds were unleashed in disciplined waves ahead of the human infantry, tasked with breaking enemy cavalry lines, biting through the hamstrings of horses, and instilling absolute psychological terror into opposing armies. This was not a mindless beast striking at random, but a highly trained, tactical unit that worked in absolute synchronization with human military maneuvers, shifting the outcomes of historical battles and establishing the canine as a defining asset in the conquest of the ancient world. As empires expanded and stabilized, the requirement for raw, crushing force evolved into a demand for stealth, speed, and long-range intelligence, giving rise to the coursing hounds and trackers that redefined the mechanics of tactical pursuit. In the arid deserts of Egypt and the vast plains of the Middle East, sight hounds like the Saluki and Greyhound were engineered with aerodynamic, hyperflexible spines, elongated limbs, and enlarged hearts that allowed them to sprint at speeds exceeding 60 kilometers per hour, utilizing an intense visual tracking system to intercept fleet-footed game across barren expanses. Simultaneously, in the dense, damp forests of Europe, scent hounds were perfected to hunt by scent alone, developing low-slung ears that swept scent molecules upward from the forest floor directly into their hyper-developed nasal cavities, allowing them to track targets across hundreds of kilometers of hostile terrain without ever losing the trail. This vast diversification of the canine lineage proved that the dog was no longer just a single species, but a malleable biological template, a living toolkit capable of adapting to any geographical terrain, any human strategy, and any threat that walked the earth. The onset of the Industrial Revolution and the subsequent rise of mechanized warfare did not render the canine obsolete. Instead, it ushered in an era of hyper-precise biological engineering, where the raw instinct of the ancient warhound were refined into the disciplined intelligence of the modern working breed. As global conflict evolved into trench warfare and sprawling subterranean engagements, the human military apparatus faced a crisis of communication and survival that technology could not solve, leading to the creation of formal military K9 programs. Breeds like the German Shepherd, Doberman Pinscher, and Malinois were engineered to possess a unique cognitive balance, an intense, unyielding drive to hunt and bite, coupled with an absolute, unquestioning submission to human commands under extreme battlefield duress. These specialized dogs were no longer just shock and awe weapons. They became search and rescue specialists, landmine detectors, and silent couriers, moving through artillery barrages and poison gas clouds to deliver vital communication lines across fractured fronts where human soldiers could not survive. Beneath the fur of these elite working breeds lies a highly sophisticated neurobiological architecture that allows them to process traumatic environments with a resilience that baffles modern psychologists. While a human soldier facing the horrors of modern combat is highly susceptible to crippling psychological trauma, a working dog's brain processes danger through a highly structured, game-oriented neurological feedback loop. For a military or police canine, searching for a hidden explosive device or tracking an armed fugitive through an active combat zone is not a chore driven by fear, but an intense manifestation of their ancient predatory drive, chemically rewarded by a massive release of dopamine upon the successful completion of a task. Their cognitive focus is so absolute that they can experience a phenomenon known as sensory gating, where their brains temporarily filter out the deafening roar of gunfire, flashbangs, and explosions to isolate a single, specific scent profile or auditory cue, allowing them to execute complex tactical maneuvers in environments that would induce immediate sensory overload in a human. This unparalleled cognitive adaptability is further enhanced by a profound anatomical transformation that optimizes a working dog for rapid, multi-environmental deployment alongside elite human operators. Modern working breeds possess an exceptional ratio of fast-twitch muscle fibers, allowing them to accelerate from a dead stop to terminal velocity in a matter of seconds, while their reinforced ligament structures enable them to leap vertical barriers twice their own height with fluid kinetic grace. Their jaws are backed by a specialized masseter muscle group capable of exerting a crushing force of over 200 pounds per square inch, engineered to lock onto a target with hydraulic precision, without breaking their own skeletal structure. By embedding this ferocious physical capability within a mind that can be guided by a human handler using silent hand signals or laser designators from hundreds of meters away, humanity successfully bridged the gap between raw prehistoric ferocity and surgical military precision, turning the ancient camp scavenger into the ultimate force multiplier on the modern battlefield. The tactical evolution of the modern canine reaches its absolute pinnacle in the specialized domains of counterterrorism, maritime operations, and disaster interception, where these animals operate as sophisticated biological sensors in environments far too lethal for human technology. In the contemporary theater of asymmetric warfare, elite military units like the Navy SEALs and British SAS rely on multipurpose canines equipped with custom tactical body armor, integrated video cameras, and bone conduction communication headsets, allowing them to be deployed via tandem parachute jumps from oxygen-depleted altitudes or fast rope from hovering helicopters directly into hostile territory. These apex operators possess a unique physiological resilience that allows them to withstand the extreme atmospheric pressure changes of high-altitude deployments, immediately transitioning into operational readiness the moment their paws hit the ground. Once inside a target compound, they function as an advanced reconnaissance asset, utilizing their hyperacute thermal and auditory senses to locate hidden enemies, identify booby traps, and neutralize threats in complete darkness before a human team ever crosses a threshold. Beyond the theater of active combat, this unparalleled sensory architecture has been weaponized to combat the invisible, microscopic threats of the modern world, turning the canine nose into the most advanced diagnostic tool on the planet. Specialized detection dogs are capable of isolating the volatile organic compounds emitted by illicit narcotics, weapons-grade explosives, and smuggled currency concealed within thousands of tons of maritime cargo with an accuracy rate that leaves million-dollar mass spectrometers obsolete. Even more staggering is their integration into the field of biosecurity and medical science, where dogs are trained to detect the subtle cellular changes and chemical signatures of human diseases, including various forms of cancer, Parkinson's, and viral infections, long before conventional laboratory tests can register their presence. This is accomplished through their ability to detect parts per trillion, an olfactory resolution equivalent to identifying a single drop of a specific chemical diluted in an entire Olympic-sized swimming pool, proving that their evolutionary apparatus is still miles ahead of human technological innovation. When nature unleashes its full fury through catastrophic earthquakes, avalanches, and structural collapses, the canines shift from an instrument of tactical elimination to an ethereal phantom of life support. In the chaotic aftermath of a disaster, where concrete, steel, and toxic smoke create an impenetrable barrier for electronic rescue equipment, search and rescue canines move over unstable, razor-sharp debris with a localized agility that no robotic drone can replicate. They are trained to ignore the overwhelming scent of deceased biological matter and focus exclusively on the specific pheromones and respiration signatures of living human beings trapped beneath meters of rubble, alerting handlers with a localized bark that pinpoints the exact location of a survivor. During these grueling, multi-day operations, the bond between the handler and the dog operates at a subconscious level, a silent exchange of psychological stamina where the canine absorbs the stress of the environment and pushes through physical exhaustion purely to complete the hunt for life. The final chapter of this evolutionary odyssey brings us back from the front lines of warfare and the edge of disaster into the quiet sanctuaries of our everyday lives, revealing the ultimate triumph of the canine strategy, the absolute psychological mastery over the human heart. Having conquered the wilderness as a wolf, broken empires as a warhound, and mastered the modern battlefield as a tactical operator, the dog has pulled off the greatest evolutionary heist in the history of the planet. They have transitioned from a tool of survival into an irreplaceable anchor of human emotional stability, embedding themselves so deeply within our social structures that they are no longer viewed as animals, but as family. This is not an accident of history, but a profound neurological synchronization. Dogs are the only non-human species that actively studies the micro-expressions of the human face, recognizing shifts in our eyes, lips, and brow to decode our emotional state before we even realize it ourselves. They have hacked our biological reward systems, triggering a reciprocal cascade of oxytocin and dopamine that lowers our blood pressure, reduces cortisol, and heals a fractured isolation of the modern human condition. This profound psychological bridge manifests most powerfully in the silent, miraculous work of modern service and therapy dogs, who act as external nervous systems for humans shattered by trauma and physical limitation. For a combat veteran trapped in the paralyzing grip of post-traumatic stress disorder, a specialized psychiatric service dog acts as a constant tactical sentinel, scanning the environment for threats, creating physical barriers of safety in crowds, and waking their handler from night terrors with urgent, grounding touch. In the medical realm, seizure alert and diabetic detection dogs utilize their hyperacute olfactory receptors to sense the subtle chemical shifts and hormonal fluctuations that precede a medical emergency, providing their owners with life-saving warnings minutes before an episode strikes. These dogs operate with a level of empathy and hypervigilance that defies standard behavioral science, operating not out of a desire for food or praise, but out of an ancient, hardwired devotion to keep their human partner alive. They look past our flaws, our status, and our weaknesses, offering a pure, unconditioned loyalty that remains one of the few constants in a volatile, rapidly changing world. As we look to the future of a world increasingly dominated by artificial intelligence, cold automation, and digital isolation, the legacy of the Apex Ally stands as an eternal testament to our primordial roots. The alliance that began around a flickering Ice Age campfire has survived millions of years of shifting continents, the rise and fall of civilizations, and the mechanization of the world. The dog did not just walk beside us. They helped build the world we live in today, guarding our early settlements, tracking our food, and protecting our children so that human culture could flourish. They are the keepers of our ancient history, a living reminder of the day humanity reached out into the terrifying darkness of the wild and found friend. From the wild wolf running through the Pleistocene snow to the loyal companion sleeping at the foot of your bed, the frozen warrior of the plains became the ultimate guardian of the human soul, a beast that sacrificed its own kingdom so that we would never have to walk through the dark alone.